to kick things off, this is the regular AMA with the Mutual X community. This is a space for us to invite people building with us and our customers and partners so that we can give them the spotlight and have them talk about their project and let the audience understand more about what's being built. We obviously record and post that in our YouTube channel as well, so anybody who's not listening right now will be able to listen in the after hours. And hello, Tony. Would love to get to know you a little bit as well. Would you mind introducing yourself to the team?
Yeah, certainly. So Tony Grillo, I'm our Chief Strategy Officer here at GreenPark Sports. I joined the team a little over 2 years ago. So I'll give the background on the company in a bit, and even our last NFT drop, which we did an AMA with Ravi back in November on, and then kind of our plans now. But my background is a few years in finance, which bored me. So I went to work in sports for just under 5 years. And then I worked in corporate partnerships and strategy. And found this team on the heels of business school. So now at GreenPark Sports, I help lead marketing, business development, analytics, and corporate strategy, which includes our investor relations and fundraising. And then I also work with now our senior strategist on Web3.
Awesome, that's a lot. Want to dig deep into that a bit as well. Unfortunately, I just wanted to highlight to everybody, Ken won't be joining us today. Unfortunately, he's unable to join, but that's okay. We have Tony all to ourselves, and we will ask him and grill him with all the questions.
Perfect, and we'll get Ken back for another one.
Yes, definitely. So yes, sounds like you wear a lot of hats, Tony. How big is the team of GreenPark Sports in general?
So I think we're somewhere between 55 and 60 right now. I came on board when we were maybe around 20 people 2 years ago, right after we had raised our seed round of funding. But I think just going back to that number, it's around a third dev, a third creative, and a third kind of other between BD, partnerships, marketing, and administrative.
Got it. And just for people who don't know, what is GreenPark Sports? Is it a collectible company? Is it a gaming company? Are you building a metaverse? What is it?
Yeah, so really the latter. We're building the virtual world for sports and esports fans. We're officially licensed. So if you are in the US and Canada right now, you can download the GreenPark Sports app. You can jump in and you can check it out. We have the NBA, LCS, which is League of Legends North America, MLS, Major League Soccer, as well as La Liga. So we have kind of a co-opetition gameplay where you jump in and you back your favorite teams and players, and you compete against other fans in the app. We have had, as I mentioned, our initial NFT drop, and I'll talk about the integration, how we think about it, back in November. And now we're getting ready for our first official league NFT drop with La Liga as well. So those NFT drops are taking place on the web, and then we'll be working on wallet integration later this year.
Awesome. And do you have your own web app, or is it a mobile app? How do people get their hands on the initial drop?
So let me separate those. So the app itself, which is a free-to-play experience right now, you can download in the Apple or Android app stores in the US and Canada, as I mentioned. So we're looking at expanding into additional territories. We're still kind of in an early access mode, but you can go to the app stores, search GreenPark Sports, download it, and check it out that way. And then as it relates to the NFT drops, we have our drop site, nft.greenparksports.com. Which is going to get a revision to it in the next week or so. So you'll see it updated for our drop with La Liga.
Awesome. That's super exciting. Have you always been a sports fan?
So I have. I grew up in the Boston area, as you can probably see by my greenie here up top. So I was a Celtics fan. The Celtics actually just tipped off in the playoffs. So I've got my score in the background. I won't be paying too much attention to it, but the Celtics are in the playoffs against the Milwaukee Bucks. But I really kind of grew up, playing a number of sports, baseball, basketball, and then played golf competitively through college as well.
How does that slot into what GreenPark Sports is trying to do? Is it a way for fans to come together? Is it a way for people to just play a game on sports? What do you envision it to be?
So I mean, there's a number of ways to look at this. The biggest thing that I've looked at over the last few years is that sports properties really aren't built for the virtual world. Nobody has integrated live data into a virtual world or kind of built a persistent space that really kind of is fueled by the live data from games. Kind of the idea that in GreenPark right now, even as I think about the Celtics playing, I went in and I made my picks for that game as a member of the Celtics fan team. And basically how the Celtics do will also affect how I do as a character within GreenPark, which is kind of a blend of a social experience and a game. And so as we think about games historically that were off chain, like Fortnite or Roblox, and now spaces that are on chain, like the Sandbox and Decentraland, they're really much bigger than sport and esport, or much bigger than fandom. And when I say bigger, I mean that it won't necessarily be their focus area. And so often you have brands chasing fans into the bases, right? You have tens of millions of people playing Roblox, and now you have big leagues that are trying to go and stay relevant in front of those audiences. And really, the opportunity for us is to be an engagement opportunity where you're jumping in because there are no live virtual spaces to be with other sports fans and rally together and kind of build your squads amongst them. So I think as we see what's happening in the metaverse, specifically with on-chain experiences, where there's kind of new sports brands or basketball brands being created, we see an opportunity to bring the ones that exist already with hundreds of millions of fans into this world with an authentic experience.
Got it. Am I understanding it correctly that you're getting on off-chain data, so the games that are happening live, and then you want to like recreate or be able to let people experience the game that's happening right now, for example, in a virtual world? Or is it a completely different game that you're trying to like recreate?
You said it just right. So I'm kind of loading up GreenPark in the background right now, and as I go into GreenPark, the Celtics and the Bucks game has live scores that I can jump into a virtual space where I can be around other fans who are also kind of witnessing what's happening in that game, talk to each other about that game, show off virtual gear items that they've earned for being a big fan in that space. So it is very much kind of reimagining what a game experience looks like, but in our virtual world.
What kind of sports do you see being live in Green Park Sports then? Is it are you focusing on a specific sport like La Liga, for example, right now, or what's the vision? Do you see this as expanding across all different kinds of sports for all sports fans across the world?
Yeah, I mean, I would put fandom at the top of the pyramid. There's, fandom goes beyond even just sports and esports, but given again, like these really strong areas of fandom and brands that have grown and evolved with some incredible storylines over the years, that's really where we start. Right, growing up as a Celtics fan, that's why I jump in and I immediately have the affinity for that brand. Right now, it's basketball with the NBA, it's football or soccer with La Liga and MLS, and it's esports with League of Legends North America. And we certainly hope to expand both deeper within sport. So let's say with basketball, being able to do college basketball, thinking about being able to do the EuroLeague, and then also thinking about how do we add other leagues as well. We have gotten to places with a number of other leagues where they're kind of ready to move forward and excited to do more. But for us, it's kind of like, when is the right time to go and add new leagues? And so right now, we're much more focused on making the experience better for the leagues that we have and the fans that we have.
Okay, sounds great. I think I understand it a little bit more now. Now, what's the origin story of Green Park Sports? Like, how did it even begin?
So we began back in late 2018. So we had a co-founding team of three, really strong group. The Chad Hurley, who founded YouTube, Nick Swinburne, who founded Zappos, and Ken Martin, who owned an agency called Blitz Agency, and actually created, I think it was the Zappos logo in his early days, alongside Nick. And they really came together and were thinking, like, what is the next big thing, and what is the next big thing for sports and esports? Because I think they really kind of saw that gap in terms of, like, if you come from a traditional sports background, you see that it's like, oh man, gaming's taking over unless people are watching the games on television, and we need to go find fans with games, right? It's one of the reasons why LCS was a very interesting partner for us, because it's built around an ecosystem of gamers and people who want to watch gaming. And so thinking about how we could bring that into a virtual environment and really an attention economy was really where the team landed. And so authenticity was super important. So if you jump into GreenPark, I think one of the really interesting things that we've been able to do is co-create with the IP of these brands. So, we have official jerseys from all of the leagues, so you can get your favorite teams and players within GreenPark. But also, we've created some pretty wild stuff like, my Celtics hat that has clovers that are glowing and flying off the top of it, or if I go to Real Betis and it's this kind of special design that is also glowing. I'm wearing my Phoenix Suns shoes that have lights beaming off them that everybody else can see. So we've been able to kind of take the types of things that a fan may want to wear but don't even exist in the real world and bring it into Green Park. And what that enables us to do is really enable you to prove your identity as a fan. It's one thing to say you're a biggest fan, but if you jump into Green Park and you see somebody who is decked out in the gear that you could only get if you made it to level 100 within Green Park, that's a whole nother level of fandom. And so that was really the type of experience that we were trying to create.
Got it. Awesome. And why did you decide to like bring this to the metaverse? Like, why do you think the metaverse is the right channel slash medium for the fandom that you envision?
I mean, I think first and foremost, fans are spending more time in these spaces. And I say fans because it's really about like potential fans. There's the idea of just like time spent, right? And how much time are you spending IRL? How much time were you previously spending watching a television? Are you spending on your phone? Are you spending in virtual worlds? And one of the trends that we saw was people spending time in virtual worlds who historically were actually spending time in very, very different experiences. And that sports experience in a virtual world or metaverse didn't exist. And so for us, that was why that needed to be the main focus. I think the second reason was really all about expression. And expression being, there's lots of apps out there where you can go and you can check scores or you can make picks and maybe you can earn some stickers for your profile, but it doesn't differentiate who you are as a fan. It's not a character or an identity that you can travel with. And so that was why this was so important to us is, the idea of kind of this parallel world for fans really enabled us to take fandom to a whole new level.
So how does GreenPark Sports work within mobile then? Like the app, how does it actually work? I know you've alluded to some of these, like for example, leveling up to level 100, going to the space. But is it like an MMORPG? Is it kind of like Roblox? How do people who haven't tried it understand it?
Yeah, I would say it's not an RPG. It's not quite like Roblox from a creator standpoint. It is more of an MMO experience, but I would say you can think of it as being, I said like a social gaming experience is how we've referred to it in the past. And I would say it's a social experience that has games for you to experience with friends. But again, it's not necessarily kind of hinged around this idea of going to different levels within the game. When I talk about levels, it's about what is your level of fandom. It's about looking at my
Mm.
progression path within La Liga and realizing that, based on how I have played and been a part of this ecosystem and maybe how I've brought friends in, that I've reached level 19 and I've unlocked a gold locker. And inside that gold locker is gear for my avatar, or inside that other locker are cards that enable me to level up my predictions and be able to get one step ahead of other fans in that experience. But I guess just taking a step back, it's really about being able to enter a space for any of the leagues and a space for any of the games. So I'm kind of looking at it as I talk to you, but I'm looking at the logos for LCS, NBA, La Liga, and MLS. And as I look at those logos, I can go and I can click into any one of those experiences. And then I can jump into we call them match parties or watch parties. So right now, for example, the Celtics and Milwaukee game, the Bucks is live. And so that's an experience that I can jump into. I can also go and jump into the Warriors and the Grizzlies game. And when I jump into that space, it basically brings me into a very separate area where fans of those teams can go in together and can follow along and can talk to each other and can throw emotes up and follow the game with a play-by-play format that's on our Jumbotron and look at their picks along the way. So it's really about different spaces that we have. And one of the things that we're working on right now is how you can bring friends into your space in a very frictionless way. So the idea that, Nigel may be able to launch his own watch party for the Warriors Grizzlies game or the Sevilla Getafe game. And when you do that, you can immediately deep link your friends in. So those are the types of experiences we're trying to do. And then once you're in those experiences with your friends, then it's about beating your friends, leveling up, or joining them in their squads, which is another feature we're working on, so that your squad can kind of become the most powerful within GreenPark.
Awesome. And therefore, it's much more advantageous to bring newbies into the space because you can beat them more easily.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So what happens next as the chief strategy officer? How before we go into La Liga itself and the details of that, how do you see Green Park Sports differentiating with the other metaverses, or who do you even see as competitors? Like, is it even the other metaverses, or is it people going into the stadium and buying a ticket for the game?
So it's definitely not a competitor of people who are going into the stadium to buy a game. I think we can actually complement those experiences quite well. I think one of the, not think, you say what's next, like one of the things that we'll be focusing on is how do we enable you to unlock something in Green Park only when you're actually at a game. I always use the example of like going to the game for me when I was little was about, my dad buying me a hat or a shirt or a jersey for my favorite player. And where we're going with this is that it's going to be more about what did I unlock in my phone based on that experience that I did in real life, or vice versa. What did I do in the game that enabled me to unlock something in real life, whether it's going and getting a free game day jersey, getting an experience on the field or on the court. Like those are the types of back and forth that we want to be able to focus on. I've said at the top of the pyramid previously, but I think one of our North Stars or our goals is to be the most fan rewarding platform out there. And that's really where on chain assets come in. True ownership of items is so important, as is, long tail assets. The idea that, yes, there will be certain things that you earn based on what happened that day or maybe that player or that team that are super rare that become more valuable. But to not have true ownership of those items or to have those items only in unlimited quantities really doesn't pay tribute to what fans mean to Green Park. And I think it kind of goes back to, in real life, you might have people who are like a season ticket holder and they go to every game. And you want to be sure that with those people that they are, given the rewards of doing that. The idea of not having missed a game in Green Park. What does that achievement look like, and how does that give you a reward that is on chain as well?
Got it. So it's really extending the experience that you have in real life, and how do you make it even better when they're online? When they're online as well. So how does that compare to the NFT world then? Like, do you see yourself competing with, I don't know, the board yacht clubs of the world, the Zukis of the world, etc. Or you're not even like, you don't even see them as a part of the same space, and you're more of like the sports so rare space.
Yeah, I think they're very different. Even as you think about something like So Rare, on chain fantasy, and there's a number of different platforms out there that are really focused on what does a fantasy sports
Mm.
experience look like on chain. And I would think about us as a little bit different. I think the idea of who wins isn't going to be who makes the best picks, right? Like there's so many different aspects to being a fan. One is do you show up for your team on every day? One is, do you get more people to be fans? And so being able to focus on that progress is going to be important for us. I think the way that we look at adopting Web3 and blockchain technology is really about where we think that these experiences are headed, really where we think that gaming is headed. Our chief product officer, Lewis Castle, is his company Westwood Studios created Command and Conquer a number of years ago, and so he's been through a number of evolutions in the gaming space. And when the world was coming to an end, when free to play gaming was coming out, and gaming companies were really concerned about what that would mean for these titles that have gone for 40, 50, $60 US for so many years. And really kind of we look at this as that next evolution, like assets and games. Even in some games, there have been marketplaces, even though you couldn't take them outside of the game itself. The opportunity to now actually have that as a long-term adopted technology enables us to do things that I think we would all love to be able to do. We use it as the example of like old school, and even like what free to play looks like now. It's kind of like going into a mall and buying a T-shirt, but when you go to leave the mall, they say, "Oh no, you can only wear that T-shirt when you're in the mall." That's not that's not the experience that needs to be built long term. And so that's why we're going to be working on it. So, I think it's a blend, Nigel, when you think about like where do we compete? I think it's a combination of score checking, of fans who are spending time in virtual worlds that are unrelated to sports simply because they want to be with their friends, but they'd prefer to be with their friends in a virtual world that's built around sports. And I think that, the way that we look at our NFTs and the way that we look at Web3 adoption in general is more just about fan empowerment.
Got it. Okay. There's a lot of things I want to tackle on that vein then, if that's the case. You mentioned being a fan a lot. Do you see that being the same as your fans as the Web3 community that's being that's being created right now? Do you see that there are overlaps? Do you see that they're the same, or do you see that they're completely different?
Yeah, I mean, I see two of them that are sitting in this AMA right now,
Mm,
repping
mm.
some of their favorite GreenPark Sports teams with Cloud9 and the New York Knicks represented with two avatars that are hanging out here. There's definitely overlap. I think is it major? I think just like any NFT collection, I think you see people who are speculating. We have a lot of long-term holders, I would say, from our Virtues drop. We have a lot of people who haven't necessarily opened their lockers to see their Virtues because I think they're wondering what they might be worth on the secondary market as our experience evolves. But at the end of the day, I think the juxtaposition of Web3 and of fans is longer term. We want to be more mass appeal, right? We want to be for not just casual Web3 or blockchain adopters, but even casual fans. We think about it as like the Super Bowl for American football in the US. Like when people go to watch the Super Bowl, not everybody's interested in the game. Some people are just excited to bring the chips or to make the salad and to come be with their friends. And we think that that's the type of experience that GreenPark can be. I think when you look at the two communities and you think about our Web3 community or our NFT collectors first, I think that they are really influentials for us. Not influencers in the sense of like, are they on Instagram every day? But are they the group that can really kind of show the value to what we're building and how unique it is? And, they've been a really strong community for us and provided really valuable feedback, not just related to our NFT collections, but even to the app experience as well.
Yeah, awesome. That really resonates with me because here at Immutable, we are also trying to make sure that the mainstream is able to access NFTs as much as possible. I'm curious how GreenPark Sports is approaching it. Like how do you see those people who just want to make the salad using GreenPark Sports?
No, I mean, I think everyone has something to offer, and it's really important to think about that. And I don't mean to sound cheesy. I think what some of the most fun conversations that I've been in Green Park aren't about sports at all. Sometimes people are just jumping in to talk about. It sounds lame the way I say it, but to talk about current events or to just kind of empathize with one another about something that might be happening in the world. And I think it's important to understand how while sports can be kind of a neutral ground, it can also be really empowering for fans and obviously for players to bring in other conversations as well. So I think as I think about the idea of the person who's making the salad, I think about an experience with Green Park that, if you want to go deep, you can. You can make picks every day and you can max out your picks and you can follow every game and you can bring all your friends in. And eventually you can host your own watch party. Like those are the types of things that, will be really exciting for you to be able to do. But you also might just really be excited to jump in, to run to the store and to buy an outfit that you think is funny so that you can fit in with your friends and catch up while they're following the game. I think it is really a meeting place at the end of the day is what we're trying to create.
Got it. And have you seen any major challenge? What do you think are the major challenges that you foresee to really get to that mainstream adoption?
I mean, there's a number of challenges, right? Like with any startup, it's kind of how do you get from one stage to the next? What's the right embracement of new technologies versus kind of staying the course with the technologies of old? I think that's something that we've been kind of working through, even as we see the power of Web3 and what we can be doing. We also think about how can the way that we adopt this and the way that we integrate it, how do we make sure that it is additive and it's not something we're just doing because everybody else is doing it, which that's not just a Web3 thing. That's kind of every startup has that challenge as they look at where people are gaining traction. I think ultimately the biggest challenge, and we're starting to solve it in some ways, is how can we make sure that we're authentic and that we're building with fans, or that the fans are building with us, and that we're not
Mm-hmm.
just putting something in front of them and trying to force them to like it. I think that's how you can think about the one to many that television is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the risk of us doing the same thing. And we've had these conversations recently about, Green Park has been built as a little bit more of a theme park type setup, like a place for people to come, rather than
Mm-hmm.
building the spaces as being their homes. Kind of the idea that, okay, I am this team's fan, and as I build my home in Green Park, I'm able to have a big, more powerful space to invite my friends. And then that provides me that feeling of ownership and having built the space to then go in and bring more people in. And so I think that authenticity is going to be key. Allowing people to self-identify in groups is going to be a big part of that as well. And that's kind of goes back to the comment that I had mentioned with squads as well. So it's kind of, how do we embrace these brands that people care so much about, but also allow them to create their own brands or identities alongside that as well.
Yeah, awesome. And tangent to that, and taking into consideration the feedback and the environment people are exposed to in the metaverse slash Web3, how does Green Park think about this whole play to earn trend, or like monetization, and this whole going to the moon NFTs kind of trend? Is that what you're going for, or it's more of a casual type of setting as like a normal sports event?
I think I said it earlier in a different way.
Mm,
It can be a distraction as you think about the hype train.
yeah.
I think our goal really is to provide value and memorable experiences, but it's really easy to fall into the trap of, how do you keep a floor above a certain number, and how do you push it up, and how do you gain followers to push the floor up more, and do you buy up the floor? I think we looked at a lot of these things earlier on, and I
Mm,
think there's some interesting trends that just go back to like value to your community. But ultimately, even as we think about, what is Web3 doing for us? What does the earn side of this really mean? And we look at our like a checklist that really ends up being, how do we make sure that through these through these experiences, we're doing it because we're rewarding fans. We're doing it based on how you've proven that fandom, and so that's where we are going to stay focused. I think longer term, and I think the other part, Nigel, is how do we make sure that we're building towards long term value? How do
mm,
we ensure that we're not doing things in the short term or making promises because we think it's what people want to hear, but it's not necessarily where we're able to really focus and ensure that we can bring longer term value. So I think one of the things we've been really fortunate with a dedicated early community in Web3 is they've been patient as we've been in building mode. And I think when you look at projects, there's a lot of people who are very, very active and growing great communities and talking about what they're going to build. And then on the other side, which can be a risk too, you have people who are just building and checking in with their community from time to time, which can also be disheartening as a collector. So there's a right balance there. But I think being long term focused is ultimately what is most valuable to our community and just to the company as a whole.
when you talk to your community, or when you do interact with your community, I'm not sure which part of the spectrum you are from your example, but what do you say? What do you typically not promise, but rather what kind of vision do you share to your community? That long-term vision.
So I think the biggest thing, and I will also share with what I think the community has been saying to
Mm,
us,
mm,
they want to experience it together. Like the biggest thing that we've heard is like, how can we get this into additional territories? Even as I look at Z, who is wearing a basketball throw in a New York Knicks jersey, we created that for him. Somebody in the community said, "Hey, I'll give you a greenie. I know you can't play the app yet, but let me help you jump in."
mm,
And so that enabled him to go and get that greenie and rep that character that represents his fandom. And so I think that's a big part of it, is just like, how do we allow people to experience sports and esports together? And along the way, how can they, really be able to have a piece of that? And so, just going back to the vision and what have we shared, essentially what NFTs represent for us, as I mentioned earlier, are limited quantity items. And those items can be purchased early on. but they can also be earned. So in our app store, off chain, as you think about our app, there's a number of items that can only be earned. There's a number of items that can be earned or purchased for a certain value. And then there's a number that can only be purchased. And so it's really kind of the same way that we are going to be thinking about NFT collections. And when you look back on sports and you think about memorable moments, memorable plays, memorable matches, as we think about some of what we're going to be doing with La Liga, those are the types of things that we want to create, because over time, not only can we create experiences based on those assets as we think about certain access that we might be able to provide both within the app and in real life, but also just being able to really kind of own something that represents a moment in time and how that fits in. So there's the combination of that, and also what we are continuing to iterate on, and have provided some updates to the community along the way, which is how do these NFTs add to the gameplay, right? How does wearing your favorite player's jersey actually boost you within GreenPark as we think about a revised reward path? So again, it goes back to what I had mentioned to you before, which is we're trying not to overpromise early on, and we're trying to make sure that our game design teams are actively working through it, going back to the team that we do have. And so that's really kind of how we've been working through it with our community.
Awesome, which is a nice segue to ask questions about La Liga. So how did this partnership begin?
So we began our partnership with La Liga in 2021, I think. No, 2020.
Oh wow, okay, it's been a while.
Yeah, so we've been partners with La Liga for a number of years, and they've been a great partner. Really kind of the opportunity with them was how do we come around a great brand, 20 great clubs and players associated with those clubs, and just build an authentic experience for what is one of the biggest leagues in the world. And so while we are in the US and Canada, and obviously they have a much deeper fan base in Spain, and internationally they do have some of the biggest brands, most recognizable brands in the world, as you think about their teams. But being able to really focus in on what is an incredibly passionate football community. You mentioned another product earlier, and there's Football Manager, and there's all of these experiences out there that have really captured lots of excitement and time from people who have fallen in love with them. And so it was a great opportunity for us to really just take a step forward, to be able to do something where as we add Spanish into the app, being in both English and Spanish is super important for us, even beyond La Liga. It just made sense for kind of all the right reasons.
Awesome. And why did you decide to work with La Liga? Was it by chance, or was it a very conscious decision?
So it was conscious, but honestly, that the introduction initially came through a friend who used to run social media for one of the teams, connected us with the league, and the more that we talked with them, the more we really came to appreciate their vision, and where we saw the opportunity for the ways in which that they could grow with GreenPark. And so I think even just understanding the adoption, and if you look at their partnerships, and specifically their partnerships in the Web3 space, you can see how they've really kind of been focused in a few areas in a way that other leagues have started to go into, but maybe haven't as quickly adopted in some areas. So they've been a great partner to evolve with.
Awesome. And could you share more about what exactly is that vision with them? What do you plan to do with the Liga?
Yeah, certainly. So I think the biggest piece is, and I was on a panel with them about 2 weeks ago in London. That was really just talking about the vision of sports and football and the metaverse. With them, they're really kind of looking to go where they see the world being in 5 years and 10 years. They obviously have a big organization. They can work with the sponsorship department based on how things are today, but they're also very much trying to think about, what are our fans going to want in 5 years or in 10 years? And so I think with that, the way that they've looked at what we're building is, we really want this entity to be successful. We want to grow with them. We want to help them to grow. And so kind of along the way, they've helped us to find the right opportunities to be able to start thinking about where we start and how we scale, how we can go into new territories, how we can help to work on different promo opportunities. And so those are the types of things that we've been working with them. And then I would say, the vision as it relates to GreenPark was really what I said before, which is how do we just think about the same types of ways that we're rewarding fans, but being able to provide an additional layer of value as you think about things in limited quantity and things that represent moments in time. And when we had that conversation with them, it really kind of clicked, and we were able to move relatively quickly.
Awesome. How have you found the Spanish audience so far?
So I mean, we're just getting started as it relates to what we are doing with our NFT drop and in Web3 with La Liga. But in general, what we've found, at least in the US, is a smaller but a very passionate to your own space, being able to build your own collections that you can share. Those are the things that we'll really be focused on. We're going to be looking at adding additional territories, which will be, again, important as we think about integrating a wallet so you can access your NFTs. And we're also working on a revised progression path that'll really be based around the Virtues, which was our NFT collection back in November. So those are really the big beats. But I think as it relates to La Liga and what we're doing with this La Liga NFT collection, it's really a great opportunity as you think about our world of sport to start to have on-chain assets for the leagues that can provide a new level of ownership and help to provide additional opportunities that are tied to what you own. So that's where we're going to be focused.
Awesome. Tony, do you have any key takeaways that you want the community to remember?
No, I would just say, like, I say no and then I say thanks. Yeah, yes. I would just say I really hope that you all follow our project. Would love for you to jump into our Discord and jump into the conversation. I think there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to explore. And really, at the end of the day, just looking for more people to be on this journey with us who represent fandom in a way that fandom should be represented. So we're all about a strong, passionate community and also a respectful community. But would love to have all of the members listening in and friends or colleagues to be able to learn more about us, and then hang with us over the next few months. We're really kind of working through this beta phase. We're excited to get this launch out the door, but really it's going to be about building that long-term value. So really excited, and Nigel, appreciate you having me on.
Yes, and I can't wait for you to come to Australia and me getting to try this as well.
Yes, it is one of our near-term territories, which I think there's a few people on this call that will be happy about that.
Definitely, for sure. All right, thank you, Tony. Thanks for coming. I know Ken wasn't able to come. Really appreciate you being able to make it today.
Of course. Thanks, Nigel. And take care, and thank you, everyone, for listening in.
Thanks, everybody.